Dr. Crick 7 stood before the massive window of the research station, watching the blue and green planet spin slowly below. Earth, the homeworld of the strangest species the Galactic Federation had ever encountered. The Velthari scientist pressed one of her 4 hands against the cold glass and let out a soft clicking sound of wonder. "You seem troubled," said Commander Thas, the station's military overseer. The large reptilian being moved to stand beside her, his scales catching the light from distant stars. "Not troubled," Crick 7 replied. "Curious. The Federation Council has given us an impossible task. They want us to understand how humans form bonds with other species, but everything I have read suggests that humans bond with everything. How do you study something that has no limits?" Commander Thas made a low, rumbling sound in his chest. "The Council believes human bonding behavior could solve our greatest problem. 700 species in the Federation, and we still cannot work together properly. The Dreth hate the Malocs. The crystals refuse to speak with anyone who has liquid blood. The list goes on forever." Crick 7 turned away from the window. Her large eyes reflected the stars behind her. "And humans somehow make friends with everyone, even species that want to eat them." "That is why we are here," Thas said. "Project Unity begins today. We will observe humans in controlled environments. We will document their bonding behaviors, and we will find out if these behaviors can be taught to other species." The research station, called Unity Base, held 40 scientists from 12 different Federation species. It also held 20 human volunteers who had agreed to participate in the study. The humans did not know the full purpose of the research. They had been told only that the Federation wanted to learn more about human culture and social behavior. Dr. Crick 7 walked through the station's white corridors toward the observation deck. Her assistant, a young Velthari named Mox 3, waited for her there. Mox 3 was watching a screen that showed one of the human living quarters. "Dr. Crick 7, you need to see this," Mox 3 said. His voice carried a strange mix of confusion and excitement. On the screen, a human male sat on a small couch. He was perhaps 30 years old by human counting, with brown skin and short black hair. His name tag read Marcus Chen. But Marcus was not alone. Curled up next to him was a Felix, one of the cat-like species from the outer rim. The Felix had fur the color of sunset and was purring loudly while Marcus scratched behind its ears. "The Felix arrived only 6 hours ago," Mox 3 said. "Her name is Whisper. She is supposed to be one of our observers, not a test subject." Crick 7 watched the screen with growing interest. "What happened?" "We are not entirely sure." Marcus saw Whisper looking at the food dispenser with confusion. He walked over and helped her figure out how to use it. Then he invited her to share his meal. They talked for 2 hours. And now, this. On the screen, Whisper had completely relaxed against Marcus's side. Her eyes were half closed with contentment. Marcus was telling her a story about something called a camping trip, and Whisper was listening with her full attention. "This is remarkable," Crick 7 said. "Felix are known to be highly suspicious of other species. They usually take months to warm up to non-Felix beings. Most Federation members find them cold and difficult to work with." "Marcus did it in 6 hours," Mox 3 said, "and he did not even seem to be trying." Crick 7 pulled up Whisper's file on her datapad. The Felix was a junior researcher assigned to study human body language. Her psychological profile showed high intelligence, but also high anxiety around unfamiliar species. She had requested limited contact with the human subjects. "We need to interview both of them," Crick 7 said. "Separately, I want to understand exactly what happened during those 6 hours." The interview with Whisper took place the next morning in a small, comfortable room. The Felix sat in a chair designed for her body shape, her tail wrapped around her feet. She seemed embarrassed. "I do not know what came over me," Whisper said. Her voice was soft and musical as Felix voices always were. "He was just kind, in a way I have not experienced before. Can you be more specific? Crick 7 asked. What did he do that felt kind? Whisper's ears folded back in thought. When I could not work the food dispenser, I was frustrated. I felt stupid. On the Federation station where I trained, no one would have helped me. They would have watched me struggle and then laughed about it later. But Marcus just walked over and showed me how it worked. He did not make me feel small. He said the dispensers were confusing for everyone at first. And then he invited you to eat with him. Yes, he said eating alone was sad. He asked about my home planet. He asked about my family. He actually listened to my answers. Whisper's tail uncurled and then wrapped around her feet again. No one from another species has ever asked me about my family before. Crick 7 made notes on her datapad. How did you end up sitting so close to him? The fur on Whisper's face darkened slightly, a Felix blush. He noticed that I was cold. The human quarters are cooler than I prefer. He offered to share his blanket, and then, I do not know, it felt safe. He made me feel safe, so I stayed. After Whisper left, Marcus came in for his interview. He was a tall man with an easy smile and calm eyes. He sat down and looked at Crick 7 with friendly curiosity. So, he said, am I in trouble for making friends with one of the scientists? Crick's 7 mandibles clicked in what she hoped was a reassuring way. Not at all. We are simply trying to understand what happened. Why did you help Whisper with the food dispenser? Marcus looked confused by the question. Because she needed help. But you had never met her before. She is not human. She is not even similar to humans in appearance. So, Marcus shrugged. She was having a hard time. Anyone could see that. I wasn't just going to watch her struggle. Crick 7 leaned forward. On most Federation worlds, beings do not help strangers from other species. It is considered unnecessary involvement in the affairs of others. Marcus's eyebrows went up. That sounds lonely. Lonely? I mean, what's the point of being around other people if you're not going to connect with them? Even if they're different from you. Maybe especially if they're different from you. Marcus smiled again. Whisper's great, by the way. She told me about these floating gardens on her home planet. Did you know that Felix can see colors that humans can't? She tried to describe them to me. It was like trying to explain music to someone who can't hear, but she tried anyway. I thought that was really cool of her. Crick 7 stared at the human for a long moment. In just a few sentences, he had revealed something fundamental about human psychology. Humans did not see differences as barriers. They saw them as bridges. Every new experience, every new perspective was something to be explored and valued. Mr. Chen, she said slowly, I believe you may have just helped me understand something very important about your species. Marcus grinned. Happy to help, so same time tomorrow for more interviews. Yes, Crick 7 said, same time tomorrow. After Marcus left, Crick 7 sat alone in the interview room for a long time. She pulled up the Federation database and began searching through historical records. She looked at every instance of human contact with alien species since they had joined the Federation 15 years ago. The pattern she found was remarkable. Humans had successfully formed positive relationships with 93% of the species they encountered. The Federation average was 41%. Humans had been involved in 0 interspecies conflicts since joining. The Federation average was 3.7 conflicts per species per decade. Humans had requested interspecies cultural exchanges 4 times more often than any other member species. But the most interesting data point was this. Species that had regular contact with humans showed a 27% increase in positive relationships with other non-human species. It was as if human friendship was contagious. As if learning to bond with humans taught other species how to bond with each other. Crick 7 called Commander Thass on her communicator. I think I understand what we are dealing with, she said. Humans are not just good at making friends. They are good at teaching others how to make friends. Their pack bonding instinct is not just a survival mechanism. It is a tool, a very powerful tool. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Thas spoke. Can this tool be used to unite the Federation? Crix 7 looked at her data again. I believe it can, but first, we need to understand exactly how it works, and that means we need more observations. She pulled up the feeds from all 20 human living quarters. In each one, humans were doing what humans always did. They were talking, laughing, sharing food, sharing stories. They were reaching out to the alien scientists and staff around them, treating them not as strangers but as potential friends. Project Unity had only just begun, but already Crix 7 could feel something changing on the station, something good. 3 weeks into Project Unity, the research station had transformed. What had started as a cold, professional environment had become something warmer, something almost like a community. Dr. Crix 7 walked through the common area, her 4 hands carrying datapads and sample containers. She stopped when she saw something that would have been impossible just a month ago. A group of beings from 6 different species sat together at a large table, sharing a meal. At the center of the group sat Sarah Martinez, one of the human volunteers. Sarah was a small woman with curly red hair and a loud laugh. She was telling a story, using her hands to act out the important parts. Around her sat a Felix, a Dreth, 2 crystals, a being called a Gloop, and Commander Thas himself. So there I was, Sarah said, stuck on the side of the mountain with a broken leg and no way to call for help. And you know what saved me? What? The Gloop asked. Its voice bubbled through its translucent body. A goat, Sarah grinned. A wild goat. It just showed up and started eating the grass near my leg. At first I was scared because goats can be mean, but this one just looked at me with those weird rectangle eyes and stayed close. It kept me calm. And when the rescue team finally found me, the goat led them right to where I was. A goat saved you, Commander Thas rumbled. That seems unlikely. Goats are surprisingly smart, Sarah said. But more importantly, I think it knew I was in trouble. Animals can tell these things, and I think it wanted to help. The Dreth at the table, a scarred warrior named Gorks, made a skeptical noise. Prey animals do not help predators. This goes against all natural law. Humans aren't predators to goats, Sarah said. We're just neighbors sharing the same space, and sometimes neighbors help each other. Crix 7 moved closer to the table, fascinated by the conversation. Sarah noticed her and waved. Dr. Crix 7, come join us. We're talking about weird animal friendships. Crix 7 hesitated. She was supposed to be an observer, not a participant, but Sarah's invitation was so warm and genuine that it felt wrong to refuse. She sat down in an empty chair. I heard part of your story, Crix 7 said. You form bonds with animals as well as other sentient beings. Oh, absolutely, Sarah said. Humans bond with everything. Dogs, cats, horses, birds, fish, insects. Some people even keep pet rocks. Pet rocks? The crystal nearest to Sarah shifted its crystalline body in confusion. Rocks are not alive. Doesn't matter, Sarah said. If you care about something and take care of it, it becomes part of your pack, part of your family. Crix 7 thought about this. But rocks cannot return your affection. They cannot love you back. What is the point? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I think love isn't about getting something back. It's about giving something away. When you care about something, you're making a choice to be connected to it. You're choosing to not be alone. The table fell silent. Crix 7 noticed that several of the aliens were leaning forward, listening intently. Even Commander Thas seemed moved by Sarah's words. My species does not understand this, said one of the crystals. Its voice was like wind chimes in a storm. We are born alone. We live alone. We die alone. Connection is weakness. Sarah reached out and touched the crystal's smooth surface. The crystal flinched at first, then went still. Do you really believe that connection is weakness? It is what we are taught. What if you're wrong? Sarah said gently. What if connection is strength? What if the love you give away comes back to you in ways you can't predict? The crystal did not answer, but it did not pull away from Sarah's touch either. Later that day, Crick 7 called an emergency meeting of the research team. The scientists gathered in the main conference room, filling the space with a rainbow of different body types and biological systems. I have completed my preliminary analysis, Crick 7 announced, and I have found something extraordinary. She activated the holographic display in the center of the room. Charts and graphs appeared in the air, showing data from 3 weeks of observation. Human pack bonding is not random. It follows a specific pattern, a pattern that can be documented and potentially replicated. She highlighted the first chart. Step 1. Humans identify beings who appear lonely, confused, or in need of help. They do this automatically, without conscious thought. Their brains are wired to notice emotional distress in others. We have observed this, said Mox 3. Humans seem unable to ignore suffering, even in strangers. Correct. Step 2. Humans offer help without expectation of reward. They share resources, time, and attention freely. This creates a foundation of trust. The second chart showed the timeline of relationship development between humans and aliens on the station. The lines showed how quickly trust was established. Step 3. Humans engage in what they call small talk. This seems trivial, but it serves an important purpose. It establishes common ground. It shows the other being that the human is interested in their thoughts and experiences. Commander Thass spoke up. We have noticed that humans ask many questions. They want to know about other species' home planets, families, foods, hobbies, everything. Yes, and here is the key insight. Crick 7 pulled up the most important chart. Human curiosity is genuine. They are not gathering information for strategic purposes. They truly want to understand. This genuine interest is something that other species can sense. It cannot be faked. A Dreth scientist named Korax raised his scaled hand. Are you saying that human friendship is some kind of social weapon? No, Crick 7 said firmly. A weapon is used to harm. Human bonding behavior does the opposite. It heals. But it is a tool that can be used deliberately. Humans do not just bond by accident. They can choose to bond with anyone at any time for any reason. That sounds dangerous, Korax said. A species that can make anyone into a friend has enormous power. Yes, Crick 7 agreed. But humans do not seem interested in using this power for domination. They use it to build communities, to create families, to turn strangers into allies. She looked around the room. I believe this is why the Federation Council assigned us this research. They want to know if other species can learn to do what humans do naturally. If we can, it could change everything about how the Federation works. The room was quiet as the scientists considered this. Then, slowly, Whisper raised her paw. I think it can be learned, she said, because I think I am learning it. Everyone turned to look at the Felix. Whisper's ears flattened with embarrassment at the attention, but she continued. Since I began spending time with Marcus, I have noticed changes in myself. I am more open with others. I am more willing to trust. Yesterday, I helped a crystal who was lost in the corridors. A month ago, I would not have bothered, but Marcus would have helped, so I helped. You are imitating human behavior, Crick 7 said. At first, yes, but now, Whisper paused, searching for the right words. Now it feels natural. Now it feels like something I want to do, not because Marcus taught me, but because I discovered that being kind feels good. I like who I am when I help others. Crick 7 felt a strange sensation in her chest. Hope, that was what it was called, hope. Then we have our answer, she said. Human pack bonding can be taught, not through instruction but through example, through contact, through friendship. She looked at the data on the holographic display, then back at her fellow scientists. The question now is, how do we scale this? How do we spread human friendship across a federation of 700 species? Commander Thas stood. His massive form cast a shadow across the room. We start here, he said. On this station, we let the humans do what they do naturally, and we watch, and we learn, and we change. For the first time since she had arrived at Unity Base, Crix 7 smiled. Her mandibles clicked together in a Velthari expression of joy. Then let us begin the next phase of Project Unity, she said. Let us learn to be friends. 6 months had passed since Project Unity began. Dr. Crix 7 stood in her laboratory, surrounded by screens showing data from every corner of the research station. But she was not looking at data. She was watching a birthday party. In the common area below, the humans had organized a celebration for Whisper. The Felix was turning what she called 40 cycles old, which was considered a significant milestone in her culture. 2 months ago, no one on the station had known this. Now, everyone did, because the humans had asked. The party was unlike anything Crix 7 had ever seen. Beings from 15 different species crowded the common area, eating food and drinking beverages that had been carefully selected to be safe for everyone. Someone had made a cake that was somehow edible for Felix, crystals, and gloops alike. Marcus was playing music on a strange human instrument with strings. Sarah was teaching a Dreth warrior how to dance. And at the center of it all sat Whisper, looking overwhelmed and happy and confused. She was surrounded by gifts from her new friends. Some of the gifts were strange. The crystal who had talked to Sarah about loneliness had given Whisper a piece of its own body, a small chip of living crystal that glowed with inner light. So you will never be alone in the dark, the crystal had said. Whisper had cried. Crix 7 communicator buzzed. She answered it without looking away from the celebration below. Dr. Crix 7, said the voice on the other end. This is Admiral Vox from Federation Command. I have reviewed your latest report. It is remarkable. Thank you, Admiral. The data shows that interspecies cooperation on Unity Base has increased by 400% since the project began. Conflict incidents have dropped to 0, and you claim this is all because of human bonding behavior. Yes, Admiral, but it is more complicated than that. Crix 7 watched as a gloop extended a pseudopod to high-five a human. The human accepted the gesture without hesitation, even though gloop fluid was slightly acidic. The humans have not just bonded with us, they have taught us to bond with each other. Their example has created a ripple effect throughout the station. The Federation Council is very interested in your findings, Admiral Vox said. They want to implement your recommendations across the entire Federation. They are calling it the Unity Protocol. Crix 7 felt her hearts beat faster. That is a significant step, Admiral. Indeed, which is why I am calling. The Council wants you to oversee the implementation. They are creating a new position, Director of Interspecies Relations. They want you to fill it. Crix 7 was silent for a long moment. She watched Marcus trying to teach Commander Thas a human card game. The massive reptilian was clearly confused, but he was laughing. She had never heard a Dreth laugh before. I am honored, Admiral, but I believe there is someone better suited for this role. Of who? A human, Crix 7 said. Specifically, I recommend Sarah Martinez. She has demonstrated an extraordinary ability to connect with all species on this station. And more importantly, she understands something that I am only beginning to grasp. What is that? That friendship is not a science. It is an art. Humans are artists of connection. They paint with trust and kindness. Their canvas is the universe itself. There was a pause on the line. Then Admiral Vox said, That is surprisingly poetic for a Velthari scientist. I have been spending time with humans, Crix 7 admitted. They are having an effect on me. After the call ended, Crix 7 made her way down to the common area. The party was still going strong. Sarah spotted her immediately and waved her over. Dr. Crix 7, come have some cake. I do not know if Velthari can eat human cake, Crix 7 said. This isn't human cake, this is Unity cake. We made it safe for everyone. Sarah handed her a small plate with a slice of something purple and spongy. Try it. I promise it won't kill you. Crix 7 took a small bite. The flavor was strange but pleasant, sweet and tangy and somehow warm. This is good. Right, turns out when you combine ingredients from 12 different cultures, you get something new, something better than any of the original recipes. Sarah smiled her warm human smile. Kind of like us, I guess. Crix 7 looked around the room. She saw beings who, 6 months ago, would never have spoken to each other. Now they were sharing food, sharing stories, sharing laughter. The crystals were no longer alone in corners. The Dreth were no longer threatening everyone who came near. The Felix were no longer hiding from strangers. Sarah, Crix 7 said, I have something to tell you. She explained about the Unity Protocol and the offer from Federation Command. She explained that she had recommended Sarah for the position of director. Sarah's eyes went wide. Me, but I'm just a volunteer, I'm nobody special. You are wrong, Crix 7 said. You are very special. You have a gift that your species takes for granted. The gift of making others feel like they matter, like they belong, like they are part of something larger than themselves. I just talk to people, I ask about their lives, I listen to their answers. Yes, and no one else in the Federation does that, not naturally, not the way humans do. Crix 7 put one of her hands on Sarah's shoulder. It was a human gesture she had learned. It felt strange but right. Will you accept the position? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. She looked around the room at all the beings who had become her friends over the past 6 months. Then she looked back at Crix 7. Can I bring my team, Marcus and Whisper and the others? You can bring anyone you want. And I can do things my way, with parties and meals and conversations. That is exactly what the Federation Council wants. Sarah took a deep breath. Then she smiled, and it was like watching a star come to life. Then yes, I'll do it, but I have one condition. What is that? You have to come with me, not as a scientist, as a friend. Crix 7 felt something crack inside her, some wall she had built to keep others out, some barrier she had never known existed until this moment. I would be honored, she said. Across the room, Marcus looked up from his card game and caught Sarah's eye. He raised his drink in a silent toast. Sarah raised her plate of cake in return. Around them, dozens of beings from a dozen different worlds celebrated together, united by something as simple and powerful as friendship. This was only the beginning, Crix 7 realized. The Unity Protocol would spread across the Federation. It would reach planets that had never known cooperation. It would bridge gaps that had existed for thousands of years. And at its core would be a simple truth that humans had always known. No one has to be alone. 2 years had passed since the launch of the Unity Protocol. Sarah Martinez, now Director of Interspecies Relations, stood on the observation deck of Federation Central Station, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go. Beside her stood Dr. Crix 7, who now served as her chief scientific advisor, and Marcus Chen, who had become the protocol's most successful field ambassador. The numbers are in, Crix 7 said, her 4 hands tapping rapidly on a datapad. Interspecies conflict across the Federation has decreased by 62%. Trade between hostile species has increased by 180%. And voluntary cultural exchanges are at an all-time high. That's good, Sarah said, but numbers don't tell the whole story. What about the Veldreth situation? Marcus grinned. I just got back from their sector. You're not going to believe this, but they're actually friends now. Friends? Sarah raised an eyebrow. The Vel and the Dreth have been at war for 3 centuries. We're at war, past tense. Marcus pulled up a holographic image on his communicator. It showed a Vel and a Dreth sitting together at a table sharing a meal. They were both laughing. I spent 6 months with them, ate their food, learned their languages, let them tell me their stories. Turns out, the war started because of a misunderstanding about a moon. They've been fighting for 300 years over something that doesn't even matter anymore. And now they're planning a joint colony on that moon. They're calling it Unity Landing. They asked me to cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony. Sarah felt a warmth in her chest that she had come to recognize as pride. Not pride in herself, but pride in what they had built together. The Unity Protocol was not just a policy. It was a movement, a revolution in how the Federation thought about relationships between species. But not everyone was happy about the changes. "We have a problem," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Commander Thas approaching. The old warrior looked troubled, his scales darker than usual. "What kind of problem?" Sarah asked. "The isolationist coalition has grown. They now represent 47 worlds, and they have demanded an audience with the Federation Council." Sarah's good mood faded. She knew about the isolationists. They were a collection of species who believed that the Unity Protocol was a threat to their traditional ways of life. They called human friendship a form of cultural invasion. They claimed that the protocol was destroying diversity by forcing everyone to act like humans. "When is the audience?" she asked. "Tomorrow, and they have requested that you be present." "Me specifically?" "Yes, they want to argue their case directly to the person they see as responsible for the protocol." Thas paused. "They also want to debate you, in front of the entire council." Marcus stepped forward. "That's not fair. Sarah isn't a debater, she's a connector." "Which is exactly why they want to debate her," Thas said. "They believe they can make her look foolish, that they can prove that human bonding behavior is not wisdom but manipulation." Sarah thought about this for a moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She laughed. "Okay," she said, "I'll do it." "Are you sure?" Crick 7 asked. "The isolationist leader is Regent Zax of the Coldborn. His species has no emotions. He cannot be charmed or befriended. He communicates only in logical arguments." "Perfect," Sarah said. "Then I'll just have to be very logical." The next day, Sarah stood in the center of the Federation Council chamber. The room was vast, filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Above her, in a floating platform, sat Regent Zax. He was a being made entirely of living metal, his surface smooth and reflective like a mirror. When he spoke, his voice was flat and precise. "Director Martinez," Zax said, "you have changed the Federation. You have spread human customs across the stars like a plague. You have convinced species to abandon their traditions in favor of something called friendship. I am here to argue that this is wrong." Sarah nodded calmly. "I appreciate your honesty, Regent. Please make your case." Zax's metallic body shifted slightly. Point 1. The Unity Protocol encourages sameness. It teaches all species to behave like humans. This destroys diversity. A federation of identical cultures is weak, not strong. "That's a reasonable concern," Sarah admitted. "May I respond?" "You may." Sarah took a deep breath. The Unity Protocol doesn't teach species to be human. It teaches species to be kind. Kindness looks different in different cultures. A dreth shows kindness through protection. A crystal shows kindness through shared silence. A Felix shows kindness through gentle touch. We're not asking anyone to stop being themselves. We're asking them to share themselves with others. A murmur went through the council chamber. Zax was silent for a moment, processing her response. Point 2, he continued. Human bonding behavior is a manipulation technique. Humans use friendship to gain advantages. They pretend to care so that others will trust them. This is deception. Is it? Sarah asked. Regent, have you ever met a human who helped someone for no reason, who offered kindness without expecting anything in return? Such behavior is illogical. But have you seen it? Zax was silent again. Finally, he said, I have observed such behavior in human volunteers. I assumed it was an act. What if it wasn't? Sarah stepped closer to the floating platform. What if humans genuinely enjoy helping others? What if kindness makes us happy? What if the reason we bond with other species isn't to manipulate them, but because we can't help it? Because seeing someone alone hurts us and seeing them included feels good? That would be irrational. Maybe, but it's true. Sarah smiled up at the metal being. Regent Zax, I have a question for you. In all your years of logical existence, have you ever felt lonely? The chamber went completely silent. No one had ever asked a Coldborn about feelings before. It was considered impossible. Their species processed the world entirely through logic and data. Zax's surface rippled. I do not understand the question. Loneliness, Sarah said gently, is what it feels like when you have no one to share your thoughts with, when you work and live and exist, but no one sees you, no one knows you, no one cares what you think or feel. Coldborn do not feel. Maybe not emotions like mine, but you must process something when you're isolated from others, some data point that indicates incompleteness, some calculation that tells you something is missing. Zax was quiet for a very long time. The council chamber held its breath. Then, slowly, the metal being spoke. There is a subroutine. It activates when I am without input from other minds. I have always classified it as an error, a malfunction in my processing. What if it's not a malfunction? Sarah asked. What if it's a message, your own mind telling you that you're designed for connection just like everyone else? That would mean I have been wrong for my entire existence. Not wrong, Sarah said, just alone, and there's a difference between choosing isolation and being too afraid to reach out. She extended her hand toward the platform. It's not too late, Regent. You can join us, not as a human but as yourself, as a Coldborn who learns that logic and love are not opposites. The entire chamber watched as Regent Zax's surface shifted and flowed. Something was happening inside him, some vast calculation being performed. Finally, his voice emerged, and there was something different about it, something almost soft. I withdraw my objections, he said. The isolationist coalition was wrong. We were not protecting diversity. We were protecting loneliness. We were calling our fear wisdom. His metal form descended from the platform until he was level with Sarah. How does one begin? How does a being who has never connected connect? Sarah's smile was warm as the sun. You start by talking. You tell someone about yourself, and then you listen to what they tell you. It's simple. That sounds pleasant. It is, Sarah said. It really is. Behind her, the council chamber erupted in applause, but Sarah barely noticed. She was too busy watching a being made of living metal take his first steps toward a universe that was much less lonely than he had thought. 5 years after the launch of the Unity Protocol, the Federation gathered for an event that would have been impossible a decade earlier. It was called the First Festival of Friends, and it celebrated the complete end of interspecies warfare in the Federation. Sarah Martinez stood on a stage overlooking a crowd of millions. Beings from every corner of the galaxy had come to this celebration. They stood together, talked together, laughed together. Enemies who had become allies, strangers who had become friends, isolated souls who had discovered they were never truly alone. Beside Sarah stood her original team, Crick 7, whose 4 hands now wore bracelets given to her by friends from a dozen worlds, Marcus Chen, who had spent the past 5 years traveling the stars and leaving a trail of friendships wherever he went, Whisper the Felix, who had overcome her fears to become the Protocol's most beloved counselor, Commander Thas, who had learned to laugh and had taught other Dreth to do the same. And standing at the edge of the stage, his metal surface now covered in decorative lights, was Regent Zax. The former leader of the isolationist movement had become its greatest convert. His people, the Coldborn, were now some of the most enthusiastic supporters of the Unity Protocol. They had discovered that logic and emotion were not enemies. That connection was not weakness. That being part of something larger than yourself was the most rational choice of all. Sarah stepped forward to address the crowd. Her voice carried across the vast plaza, translated simultaneously into thousands of languages. 10 years ago, she began, I was just a volunteer on a research station. I had no idea that my simple habit of talking to strangers would change the universe. I still don't think I did anything special. I just did what humans have always done. I reached out. I connected. I refused to believe that anyone had to be alone. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, tentacles, crystals, and countless other forms of life. But what happened here, what happened across the Federation, that wasn't just humans. That was all of us. Every species that chose to trust. Every being that took a risk on friendship. Every heart or processor or whatever you use to feel that decided to open itself to someone new. The crowd was silent, listening intently. The Galactic Federation was founded on trade and treaties, on logic and law, on the idea that different species could share the same space without killing each other. And that was important. That was a good start, but it wasn't enough. Sarah felt tears in her eyes, human tears born from human emotions flowing freely down her human face. She did not hide them. What we've built now, what we're celebrating today, is something more. It's a federation of friends, a universe where no one has to face the darkness alone, where every being, no matter how different, has someone who cares about them, who asks about their day, who shares their meals, who sits with them when they're sad and celebrates with them when they're happy. She raised her hand, and the crowd raised theirs with her. Hands and paws and pseudopods and claws, all reaching toward the sky together. This is what humans call pack bonding, but I think there's a better name for it. I think it's called love. Not romantic love, though that's part of it, but a bigger love. A love that says, you matter, you belong, you are part of us. The crowd cheered, and the sound was like thunder rolling across the galaxy. After the speech, Sarah stepped off the stage and was immediately surrounded by friends. Beings she had known for years, beings she had met only today. They all wanted to thank her, to hug her, to tell her what the protocol had meant to their lives. One being pushed through the crowd to reach her. It was a young crystal, barely mature, its surface still cloudy with youth. It spoke in the wind-chime voice of its kind. Director Martinez, I wanted to thank you personally. Of course, Sarah said. What's your name? I am called Shimmer. I am from the outer colonies where crystals still lived in isolation until 2 years ago. When the protocol reached us, I was afraid. We all were. Crystals are born alone. We thought that was how we had to live. And now, Shimmer's surface pulsed with warm light. Now I have friends, real friends, beings who know me, who see me, who care if I exist. The young crystal trembled. I did not know that was possible. I did not know life could feel like this. Sarah reached out and gently touched Shimmer's surface. That's what it's all about. That feeling, that knowledge that you're not alone. It's the most important thing in the universe. How do humans know this? How have you always known? Sarah thought about it. She thought about human history with all its wars and violence and cruelty. She thought about how humans had hurt each other for thousands of years. But she also thought about the other parts of human history. The kindness, the sacrifice, the countless moments when humans had chosen to love each other instead of hate. We didn't always know, she admitted. We had to learn. We made a lot of mistakes along the way. But somewhere in our past, someone decided that connection was more important than fear. And they taught that to their children. And their children taught it to theirs. And slowly, over thousands of years, we became a species that couldn't stop making friends. Even with beings that were different from you. Especially with beings that were different from us. Because when you love someone different, you grow, you learn, you become more than you were. Sarah smiled. That's the secret, Shimmer. That's what the whole protocol is built on. Love makes you bigger, fear makes you smaller, and the universe is too big to face small. Shimmer's light pulsed brighter. I want to learn this. I want to teach others. Then join us, Sarah said. Become an ambassador, spread the message. Help others feel what you feel now. I will, Shimmer said. I promise. As the young crystal moved away, Crick 7 approached Sarah. The Velthari scientist looked older now, her mandibles worn with age, but her eyes were bright with joy. You have done something remarkable, Crick 7 said. When I first met you, I thought humans were interesting specimens to study. Now I understand that you were always more than that. You were teachers, guides. You showed us what we could become. We didn't do it alone, Sarah said. We couldn't have. This was always a team effort. Yes, a team of friends. Crick 7 made the clicking sound that was a Velthari smile. When I began Project Unity, I asked a question. Can human pack bonding be taught to other species? Now I know the answer. What is it? The answer is yes, but not through lessons or protocols or policies. It is taught through example, through living it, through being a friend and showing others what friendship looks like. Crick 7 placed one of her hands on Sarah's arm. You showed us, Sarah, you and all the humans who came before you, and now we are showing each other. Sarah looked out at the crowd. She saw Dreth warriors arm in arm with Felix philosophers. She saw crystals sharing light with gloops. She saw Coldborn discussing ideas with beings of pure energy. She saw a universe that had been transformed by something as simple and powerful as kindness. Do you think it will last? She asked. Crick 7 considered the question. Nothing lasts forever, but this, what we have built, it is strong. It is built on the deepest foundation there is, the foundation of caring for each other, of choosing connection over isolation, of deciding every day that we are better together than apart. That sounds like something a human would say. I have learned from the best. Crick's 7 mandibles clicked again, and I am proud to call her my friend. As the festival of friends continued around them, Sarah felt a peace settle over her. She had never set out to change the universe. She had only wanted to make friends, to connect, to make others feel seen and valued and loved. But sometimes that was enough. Sometimes the simplest things were the most powerful. Somewhere in the crowd, Marcus was teaching a group of children from different species a human game called tag. Nearby, Whisper was helping 2 crystals understand the concept of hugging. Commander Thas was telling war stories to a group of young Dreth, but the stories had changed now. They were about battles won through diplomacy, not violence, about enemies who became brothers. And Regent Zax, the metal being who had once argued that connection was illogical, was surrounded by friends from every species in the Federation. He was telling them about his journey, about learning that his error subroutine was actually the voice of his soul, calling out for companionship, about discovering that even a being made of metal could have a heart. Sarah watched all of this, and she smiled. The universe was vast and cold and full of darkness, but it was also full of light, full of warmth, full of beings who had learned, against all odds, to reach across the void and hold each other's hands. That was the legacy of human pack bonding, not the conquest of space, not the advancement of technology, but the simple, revolutionary act of caring about someone other than yourself. And in the end, Sarah knew, that was enough to save any universe. The festival continued late into the night, and when the stars finally appeared in the sky above the plaza, Sarah looked up at them and whispered words that only she could hear. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for letting me be part of this." And somewhere in the vastness of space, she could have sworn she felt the universe whisper back, "Thank you for showing us the way."